Do you know what makes this car special? This was the first ever invented car with invisible doors. Now, this is called Electrobat. Such a great name, Electrobat. And this was the first electrical mass-produced car built in 1894. It had a top speed of 25 kilometers per hour and it weighed 2 tons. And it had to have like steel wheels to be able to carry the weight. And on one charge, you can go from here to Frölunda Torg and back. And for you who don't know what that is, it's like 16 kilometers from here. And that's quite impressive, right? 1894. This car was built by Henry Morris, and I actually think he was an engineer, and the other guy was an electrician. I think he was called Sandro, actually. So they traveled around the US in the late 1800s, trying to outcompete the horse-drawn taxi industry. It's interesting to think about how the business model looked like, or the sales pitch. So are you tired with the smell go electric? Anyway, in the late 1800s, the electrical car was the shit, no pun intended, but it was everything. But in the beginning of the 1900s, the combustion engine came, and in 1911, the electrical starter was invented. Like a key. So you didn't have to crank start a car like this. And the electric car went down. But it's interesting to think about what the world would have looked like if the electric car won that race back in the beginning of the 1900s. Oh. This is a BMW i4 M50 all-electric car. 3.7 seconds from 0 to 100. You can go from here to Frölunda Torg and back 27 times on one charge. BMW tried something different. They tried to sell seat heat as a service. So you bought your BMW and then you had to pay a monthly fee to get your seat heated. Do you think that the customer liked that idea? No. When you buy a car, or especially when you buy a BMW, you quite kind of think that the seat heat is included in the car price, right? But it's interesting because within the car industry today, a lot of new business models are evolving all the time. You have, for example, Mercedes-Benz that try to sell autonomous driving, and they integrated ChatGPT in their car as a service. And you have Volvo with 360 camera view. So a lot of things are happening within the car industry today. But this is not only the car industry. All industries are evolving, and the business models are evolving fast within all industries. Mainly driven by the technology advancements in the society and AI, of course. If you think about business models, what would the business models look like in 3 years or in 5? That's where we come in, right? We, as people working within organizations and with organizations, to make the organizations that we work for ready for tomorrow, more future-proof. This was just, let's change back. Today we are going to talk about a journey. A journey from Microsoft BizTalk to cloud. Cloud where Microsoft are investing billions and billions of dollars with new techniques and technologies. Are you a freelancer? Okay. Millions of dollars, billions of dollars in new techniques for us to utilize and to make our companies better. And it's really thrilling for me as an old BizTalk guy, starting with BizTalk in 2004, to have Sandro here. When I started with BizTalk, you couldn't even find anything online. And when you guys started posting your blogs and articles, it really helped the BizTalk community and organizations back in 2010, was it, or 9, 8?
6.
6, okay,
9, yeah.
already 6. Yeah. So, a warm welcome to you. And of course, we have our tall man from Gothenburg, Amsterdam, Simon Stender as well. Welcome. And of course, to all of you, welcome here. My name is Stefan Wånggren, as you saw before, and I'm the CEO of Contica. I started Contica together with Richard and another guy called Magnus 14 years ago. And I hope you will enjoy these sessions. I'm sure you will. We will be able to talk more later or to mingle afterwards.
So, as he said, my name is Batman. It's Ahmed. Welcome, everybody. I can't find the thing. Yes, thank you. We're gonna start now to go into a journey. But the most important thing before starting the journey is what? It's a backing. And this migration journey is to the cloud. It doesn't exist yet, but we still have our on-prem that we need to start to plan, and we need to start. We need to start pack our bag with the necessary things before even start the journey. And with those things, we have been packing some kind of the most important steps into that journey that can prepare you towards the next step, which is the cloud. In 6 days, we try to pull out everything from BizTalk and to make sure how to deliver the best planning for the next step, which is your cloud. Okay. That's good. That's Sandro and Simon. And this is our assessment package that we, within 6 days, we gather as much information as possible from BizTalk and gather the necessary information to help you perform and plan the best roadmap that will take you to the right direction and also make it easy for you to plan your landing zone in Azure. But it's not me who's going to talk about that. I will leave it to the best in the market and either.
So yeah, the first one is coming up is Sandro. But we need really to talk about when we met Sandro here at Contica the first time. We met you in London 2 times, but we also saw you in one session, a digital session where we needed to use the emergency exit plan because all of a sudden in the digital presentation the alarm went off. And I really need you to ask the Contica staff here in the break why the alarm went off. So maybe it's not that one, but alright. Talk about why the alarm went off. But the show must go on. I mean, Ahmed is the one who always adapts to the situation, and when everyone left the meeting, he joined the meeting with his phone, looking at Sandro and continued the discussion. So yeah, I think that's one of the mottos that you have. The show must go on. It never stops. But yeah, Sandro, we are very happy to have you here. I asked you about some where has your speaking skills taken you, and as you said that you've been speaking in London at Integrate since 2013, a lot of times. You've been to. I asked you what's the furthest you have traveled to speak, and you said to the west, Seattle, Norway to the north, now in Sweden, and also to Abu Dhabi. So you covered much land on this globe. Just because of your speaking skills and your BizTalk skills and your tech skills. Impressive. I asked what would you do if you did not work with tech. You said you wanted to have a vineyard. So I think that we can talk about wines with you in the break, right?
Always.
All right. And then you're also a big Star Wars fan, and you're trying to acquire this. You're on a quest with your son to acquire the Millennium Falcon Lego. I think we want to hear more about that later. And yeah, he wanted to come while there was snow. So I guess you need to come back and to have a session up in Norrland or something, because snow in Gothenburg, not so much. As I said, I'm gonna stop talking soon, and this is the first occasion we need to make your hands clap. So Sandro, Pereira, please come up to the stage.
There's a big delay on the slide. As the Contica guys mentioned, my name is Ahmed Pereira. I'm the head of integration at DevScope, a consultant company based in Portugal. I work daily in enterprise integration, and that means BizTalk server and now Azure integration servers. I'm one lover, a Star Wars fan with my youngest son. You have my emails there, and I am a father of 3 kids, which is a lot in the house. It's a house full of noise, and we like it. I'm also a trainer, delivering enterprise integration training course about BizTalk server and Azure Logic App and Azure integration service. And this is the commercial part. My company asked me to put some slides here. If you are in the need for some kind of OCR system, take a look at Smart Documented Cloud. It's a product that DevScope has about kind of processing your invoices, your paper, your documents, and extract information and integrate that in a very easy way. I'm not going to speak too much. The slides are going to be available. You can go watch, and you have a special discount. If you have, just use Sandro 10, and you can later on go and check more details about that. Okay, so I fulfill my part about DevScope. So now let's go to the important stuff. And let's start by removing the big elephant from the room, that is BizTalk server. Okay, this is not a talk about BizTalk server, but it's always that is BizTalk there. Okay, this question appears since I started working in BizTalk 18 years ago, more or less. Okay, no, BizTalk is not there. Okay, so that's important. You don't see that from Microsoft. You don't see too much news from Microsoft, but BizTalk is not there. Okay, so at the moment we have BizTalk 2020. There is no communication from Microsoft saying that it's going to be the last version or it's going to be discontinuous. The support, the mainstream support, is until 2028 and extended 2013. So it's a lot of time that we still have using the current version of BizTalk. Okay? Again, I don't know if there is going to be a new version. I don't really need a new version. I need platform alignments. That is what I want, because I know that there is SQL Server 2022 and Windows Server 2022, and in terms of companies, it's important to have update these systems for security stuff and also maintenance. So I guess this is what I want. BizTalk process the same as in 2004, 2008. The core is still the same. It's a very reliable product and works amazing. So yes, BizTalk is still here. It's still very valid product. Okay, there are many companies that is not ready to jump to the cloud, neither going to the cloud. Okay, I have clients that they work in on-premise facilities. They are there. They cannot be on the cloud, and there is no option at the moment to do the same as BizTalk do in an easy way that is there. And we also have this hybrid. Okay, so hybrid is still a very good option for many clients, and even during this migration journey that we are going to speak, is still very, very valid. Okay, so yes, let's remove that. And another question is this migration from BizTalk to Azure is going to be relaxed, easy? And no, it's not going to be. Okay? I'm not going to lie. Okay, just it's not going to be easy. Okay, BizTalk is not a service; it's a platform. Okay, it has many features on top of it. It can do a lot of things. I'm not saying that you cannot do the same on the Azure stuff, but it's going to be different. Okay, so. It's going to be a complex and time-consuming task because you have to redesign a lot of things, you have to reinvent a lot of things, and you have to test all of this. Okay, so if I migrate BizTalk 2016 to 2020, I can do it in 1 month, 2 months, depending on the number of solutions and the features that we are using. It's quite simple to migrate BizTalk 2016 to 2020. It's just recompile it. That's it. Okay? Recompile, deploy. Nothing happens. That's simple as that. Okay? The problem is that when you create a new environment, you have to pass again for the test phase. And you have to have commitment by different teams, be available, and that's going to be a time consuming. So imagine that now we have to redesign, we have to build that in a different way, and you have to test it with the business and approval. That's going to be a time-consuming task. So it's not going to be easy to do that. It's going to take a little bit of time, okay? And by doing that, it's also going to be a little bit expensive, no? Because we have to book resources, technical resources. You have to book the teams to work with testing, approvals, and so on and so forth. That is going to be cost. Some of them is going to be internally costs, others going to be external, like hiring consultants. But it's not going to be that. It's going to be a little bit expensive. Okay. What I always say that when you take this journey, think about innovate. Do not migrate as is, okay? Take this opportunity because you are going to reinvent some of this stuff. Try to innovate. What can be the different? Because I have applications that they are running the same way for the last 15 years. That's a long time, okay? So that client, it's working, do not touch, leave it, and that's it. So in this case, some of the stuff are going to be different. Try to innovate. Try to do something different. Speak with the business, say, can we do different? Can we improve that? What is the pain fault of your current solution, and what can we do different to be better? Okay. But it is possible. You can migrate everything that is inside BizTalk to Azure Integration Service. And I say Azure Integration Service. I don't say the Logic App. Okay? Many say, oh, we are going to migrate BizTalk to Logic App. Impossible. Okay? Logic App is just the orchestration. You are going to migrate to Azure Integration Service and more service. Because even Azure Integration Service is not enough. Okay? You have to use other service on Azure. But this is not a session about should we stay or should we leave BizTalk. We are already decided that we are going to migrate, and we have to make our choice. Our solutions is not staying that, and even again, hybrid on this migration journey is going to be very useful for you guys because, well, we are not going to migrate one shot because that's going to be a nightmare, and I'm going to speak that in future. Next slides. And throughout this migration phase, sometimes staying parts on premise and create other parts in Azure and do this hybrid migration is going to facilitate and help you do this kind of journey. Okay, but this is a session that we already decided. We are going to move on, and we are going to Azure. Okay. Next. So integration, it is not easy. Okay. It's not a fancy technology like Power BI that sells everywhere, that we present the dashboard and people go crazy. It's not. It's they know us when the system is down, and everyone knows your name. Okay, everyone knows that this is the middleware fault. Okay, it's the BizTalk fault. But if it's going to be the same in Azure, it's going to be the middleware fault. And it takes, for us enterprise integrators, a lot of skills, no? And I faced these with Azure and consultant engineers that they lack some of these information. So we live in a world that inconsistency is our world, okay? We have inconsistent informations, different formats, different protocols, and we have concept of long-running operations. Try to explain what is a long-running operation to some of these new guys. It's not going to be easy, okay? Fault tolerance. I had one meeting and I spent half an hour saying that, okay, we decide everything that is good. We know how to communicate, what to do. What happens if the system fails? What's going to be our decision? What we need to do? Sandro, it never fails. That's an Azure function. It scales automatically, it never fails. Guess what? 1 week I destroyed with BizTalk, I destroyed that Azure function. And we had an immersion meeting. I was the only one smiling in that meeting, saying, I told you so. Okay? Guarantee deliver, re-entry. So if it fails, we have to reprocess again the message. How are we going to do that? Retry mechanisms in connectivities, persistent points, okay? Backup channels, massive number of endpoints, many systems, all of these dynamic configurations, okay? Based on our message, our payload, we define what to do. We define where to communicate, different FTP, a different email, a different SQL server, and so on, okay? And on top of that, we have to monitor all of these things, okay? Because everything is going to be the middleware fault. And we need to monitor and say, no, it's not my fault, it's the system, and so on and so forth. This is everything that BizTalk brings you kind of out of the box. Azure integrations do not provide all of this out of the box, okay? So, but we, as enterprise integrations, we know all of this. So playing with BizTalk or playing with the Azure integration service is just a different tools. We have the mindset, we have the skills, we know how to implement that, okay? So it's going to be easier. And I always say that the BizTalk guys are going to be the best ones to migrate to Azure because you know all of this, okay? But BizTalk, again, is a system. It provides everything in a single solution. It has all the tools that you need, kind of in a box, let's say it this way, okay? Everything is person, is reliable, okay? We have a machine, or at least, in fact, it was 2 years ago that I migrated my last BizTalk 2004. 2 years ago, which is insane, but it's working, no touch, okay? That's how much reliable BizTalk is, okay? And the focus, when we design our solutions, we focus on the message, okay? We get a message, XML or JSON, and we need to transform to another message. We design our solution, focus on the message, deploy it, and then we configure the channels, okay? If it's an FTP, a secure FTP, a file share, you name it, I don't care. It's just a configuration later on, okay? The only maybe difference is when you use log adapters, and that's kind of a little bit binding with SQL or SAP and something like that, no? But the focus is on the message, okay? Now, Azure integration system, Azure integration service, the only consistent that we have is inconsistent, okay? Everything changed in Azure, okay? Dramatically, okay? When we start this phase of migration, Microsoft says Azure Logic App isolated environment, highest environment was the way to go, the highest environment, okay? If you want to migrate, you have your own dedicated environment of Azure, that was the way. It's deprecated now, okay? We have until next year to remove ICE, because ICE is gone. And you have to migrate to Logic App consumption, Logic App standards, as a function, and so on and so forth. That's how fast Azure is going. And it's not the BizTalk 2004 that stays there. Okay? You cannot afford that. You have to go fast. You have to work fast. Okay? Well, it's fast release cadence, which is good, but we also force the companies to go fast. And the focus of our solutions is not really in the message anymore. Okay? Because if you are going to do an orchestration, you use the connectors, okay? So we are binding more to the connectors than from the message itself. It's kind of a mix, it's not the same story that we have in BizTalk. That's why I say that we need a lot of redesign by migrating BizTalk to Azure, okay? Even if you have the same SQL, well, BizTalk uses XML to communicate with the SQL. The SQL connector, the Azure SQL connector does not use XML. It's a different technology behind. It's a REST service. So we cannot longer have these XML to XML and mapping. We have to redo this part, at least. Okay, so there is a lot of redesign on that. And there is no PubServe out of the box. If you want PubServe, you have to implement PubServe most of the ways by using Service Bus. If you want persistence, maybe you have to redesign your solution and use Service Bus to do this kind of persistence, because Logic Apps do not persist that execution. It failed, it fails, it can resume from the start, not from the failing point. Microsoft is doing some innovation there, and probably in the future we have this kind of persistence, but not at the moment, okay? So it is different, okay? There is a lot, and when we have our solution also, well, after we create our BizTalk environments, we don't care too much about the environment per se, we care about the solutions. When we migrate to Azure, we cannot only look to the solution itself, we need to work also with the environment. Which type of service we are going to use? Are we going to use premium, standard, because that's going to be a huge big difference in terms of cost, okay? So it's not just a developer, it's a developer with a mix also with Azure skills and money also on the top. This is not new for you guys, so Azure Integration Service is composed by server service, Logic App, the orchestration, API management to expose our APIs, event grid, service bus, data factor for ETL and Azure functions. And again, some of them are overlapping in terms of functionalities, no? We can use Logic App to do our workflow, but we can use also Azure functions, right? There is durable functions, so we can do some kind of orchestration. Sometimes it's about what is your policy in your organization, low code, no code first, or first code, first approach instead of low code. And believe me that some companies difference that behavior, no? So yeah, Now, what we need to say no from the beginning, no? When we start this migration plan, we cannot go and say, okay, let's migrate. Just with nonsense. We have to kind of first plan our migration, no? So before, at least on this phase, we have to say no to certain things, okay? So first is, don't think that you can migrate as is BizTalk. Okay, the only thing that you can migrate as is BizTalk is to put the BizTalk machine running on Azure. That's it. Okay, that's the only way as is. Okay, so do not think that you can migrate exactly as it is inside BizTalk, because that will not happen. Okay, don't think that it's going to be an easy and short ride, because it's not going to be again. Okay, and again, do not think that just migrate for eyes you are innovating, okay? Because you are not. Most of people saying, I'm going to remove BizTalk because I'm going to innovate. And guess what? BizTalk is processing a file to a file. And they are going to put on Azure a file to a file. That's not innovation. That's using a different tool doing the same stuff. Okay? That's it. Innovation happens anywhere. It happens in BizTalk. It happens in Azure. It happens in mainframe IS400 that's still used today, okay? And it's still very old technology, and still plenty of use today. Okay? Banks, all of banks have IS400 mainframe and COBOL inside. And believe me, I know from the last worst experience. But there it is there, okay? And sorry, I wake up at 3 in the morning, so sorry about some of my jet lag, or a little bit tired. And do not think that by removing BizTalk from the equation, you never need to face migrations. Okay? So if you go into Azure, there is going to be migrations also in Azure. So we start in Azure Functions. The core was 2.0. Now core of the Azure Functions 3.0. We have to migrate these, otherwise they're going to be deprecated. There was a HISE environment. It's deprecated now. Well, you can name it whatever it is. It is a migration from HISE to other service. So Azure Functions, large cap consumptions, or large cap standards. It's still migrations happens no matter if you use BizTalk or if you are going to use Azure, okay? And don't go and jump directly for migration, okay? You will never should go to your BizTalk and say, we are going to migrate this solution and start migration tomorrow, okay? That's a big mistake. First, you have to look about the foundations of Azure, okay? Because Azure is not a VM that we have with BizTalk, and we can start create some solutions. There is kind of naming conventions, there is how we use resource groups, how we are going to use subscriptions, and so on and so forth. All of these matters. All of this has to be defined before. It should be defined before you start going and start doing all of this. And many organizations are still not that on that phase. They may think that they are going to use Azure, but a lot of them don't have this kind of rules and policies what you need to do, okay? And again, I'm going to speak a little bit that further. And do not plan a big bang migration. It's not saying that I'm going to migrate all my BizTalk and then I'm going to just turn on the key and start everything on Azure. That's going to be a huge time consuming, and guess what? Probably when that happens, most of the parts are already discontinuous and you have to kind of migrate some stuff in Azure. Just go, pick some pieces and migrate and keep doing that, okay? Do not plan a big bang migration. Now, again, foundations. Before we start migrating BizTalk or any application to Azure, we need to think a little bit about the basics of Azure itself. Okay, what stack we are going to use in terms of service that is going to build our middleware platform. Okay, so are we going to use API management, WatchCap standard consumption? What is our key pieces that we are going to use, and that's going to be our main service in terms of Microsoft integration. Okay, have a good subscription policy. There is a subscription called DevTest. Okay, DevTest is for non-production environments. You have costs are less than using the normal subscription, because if you create any kind of service in a normal subscription, you pay that. No matter if it's their Q&A or prod, it's prod for Microsoft. So a Service Bus Premium, it is the cost of a Service Bus Premium, no matter if you call it dev test or production, it is a production. So some kind of service in a dev test policy subscription has less cost, less SLA of course, because it's a non-production subscription. And then I'm going to use subscription for controlling what is a dev environment, a Q&A environment, or a production environment. Also, we can have these kind of decisions, or we are going to say we are going to use only one subscription and we are going to deal that in different ways. And again, resource group policies. What is a resource group? Naming conventions about resource groups. Are we going to use one subscription and then different resource groups to control what is their Q&A in production? Because we still have this kind of concept in Azure, no? A dev environment, a production environment, and a Q&A environment. Okay. And what about security policies? Okay. It's a dev consultant do everything in the dev resource or in the dev subscription, but are you going to allow them to go to production subscription and touch that? I don't think so. Okay, you have to create these policies. Okay, and we do create a lot of these in saying that everything that is in there we can do it manually, edit everything, but everything that is Q&A production has to be through CI/CD process. No one is going to allow them to go there and touch. And if there is a special requirement, then you have to request special access, and for a period of time, we can go access, troubleshoot, and fix that, but then fix the rest by CI/CD. But well, we cannot leave the problem in production for that time. So in some cases, we have to go and do some time to make. Tag policies about costings, that's important for the company. So this is always that you have to think about before you still start doing some kind of migration. And Azure naming conventions. I fight a lot with clients and even with my team about naming conventions. It's annoying, I know, but it's important. Okay, because if you start giving names based on your imagination, I will create one name, you will create another one, you will create another one, and no one knows what it is. Okay? And the problem is not the developer, is the guy that is going to monitor in the Azure. And he is going to be in a difficult position because he doesn't know nothing about this. So it's important to have for each resource a good naming convention and keep that naming convention. I normally say, I don't care about your naming convention as long as you create your naming convention that works for your company, your client, stick with that. If it works for you, keep that. For me, there is no, my naming convention is best than your naming convention. It is what the client decides, but keep it constant, okay? And then, kind of, what is going
What?
Not this one.
Let's see.
I don't have any Netflix button here. But I was going to say that another slide. What is your end-to-end tracking strategy? Okay, we can do a lot of tracking inside Azure for each particular resource. But at some point, you have to understand what is end-to-end tracking. I need to know a message arrived and what is the flow of that message. And it's not that simple because BizTalk, you have an admin console, you know the receive port, orchestrations, send port, you have everything there. That will not happen out of the box in Azure. Now, it can go to our API management, it can call a logic app, it can go to the service bus, an Azure function, logic app, Azure function, another logic app, go to another system, and you have to know these flows, okay? Or you kind of go and look for each resource and try to find out, or you create some kind of strategies, and you have to create them, okay? And again, if it's end-to-end tracking, what's going to be your monitoring capability strategies, okay? What you want to do. Error handling and hit-write capabilities, okay? And I mentioned error handling here. It's quite simple to do. Try catch, that's it, okay? Trust me, try to find the correct error information inside the logic app is not that simple as you imagine, okay? You cannot go get the error message. So if you are in C#, exception.message, you get the result. See? In Logic App, you have to call the REST API of Logic App, give the subscription, the resource loop, the run history, read the run history, fetch, get the error, and then get the description of the error. This is the only way. Okay, as the Mandalorian says, the only way. There is no good way to get the error message unless that. So try to see what is your error handling strategies and hit-write capabilities also. Persistent and re-entry. What can be re-entered? What is try and forget? How and when to persist the message, okay, and what to use, of course, and deployment policies. This is very important, okay, because again, no one allows you to go to production and create it manually. And I face this problem because I have one client that I create all the rules, and then my solution has a function very easy to deploy, logic app very easy to deploy, and then he has service bus with queues, topics, and access policies. That's not code. Right? That's kind of you don't create any code to create a topic or a subscription or a queue. It's kind of infrastructure, no? And I went to the client and say, we need to create these in production. So can you give me access to go and create? No, somebody told me that no one creates manually this stuff. You have to do by CI/CD. Okay, you know, I have to learn bicep scripts to do that. Eh? But again, create these deploy policies and respect that. Okay, it's very important, and you have to stick with that. And development strategies and policies also. This is important. Why? If you create a logic app, depending on the logic app, you can create on the portal, on Visual Studio Code, or in Visual Studio 2019. Okay? None of my solutions we create in the Azure portal because there is no good source control or CI/CD. So no one is going to do that. We have to use these tools. And we have these rules about saying that for each service, we use these developer tools. Because I don't want then to have all the teams saying, okay, I'm going to use Azure function when one use Visual Studio 2022 and the other use Visual Studio Code because they like it. Okay? No. Everyone has to respect that because I want to seem consistent inside the organization. Okay? So you see that with all of these, then, and there is a lot of things more that you have to do it, then you say that, okay, I build my foundation, I have everything that I need, networking, access policies, resource, naming conventions, everything, then I can go ahead and start planning my migration, okay? So what we need to do, okay? First and always do an assessment of what we have inside BizTalk, okay? This is very important because many of the people that are going to migrate the solutions are not BizTalk guys. And they have to know what is inside BizTalk to understand that. And when I mean an assessment, I mean some kind of this documentation. I use a lot the BizTalk document. That is give me a good technical documentation. It has all the diagrams, the orchestration, the ports, configurations, but I also create this kind of visual information where I just say what are the connection systems that I'm able to connect. So we have a kind of an overview situation. And even I can create some kind of document, high level document with the most important stuff. And people can read and start how they are going to resync that in terms of migration. And about after the assessment, how we are going to design the new solutions inside the Azure function, the Azure integration service. Okay, what service are we going to use? How and when we are going to use that, and so on and so forth. Okay. Next, and that means that I'm going to build my architecture. I'm going to say, and this is normal the service or the slide that I present to my client. So mainly, if I want to design my Azure integration middleware on the cloud, I have API management to expose my APIs. I'm going to have logic app, no matter if consumption or standard is a logic app. As a function is going to be there almost always because that also gives me extra functionalities on the logic apps that doesn't exist by default. Event hubs, because I can easily do a logging with API management with the event hubs. As a function, I can log with the event hubs. Logic app also, and that can be app insights, whatever. I don't care because I put in event hubs and then I decide where to fetch that data and insert somewhere to show the logins. I will have service bus for sure because that's where I can persist and do asynchronous integrations. And Key Vault, okay, that's not an Azure integration service, but Key Vault is where I put the secrets. Okay? So again, there are a lot of things that still there is a lot of networking behind the scenes, BNet and so on and so forth that is not here. But this is kind of my middleware stuff that I normally create. Okay? And when to use each of them. Okay? If I want low latency, really low latencies, I'm not going to use logic app. Okay? I'm going to use an API or a function, but not logic app. Okay? You cannot achieve 200 milliseconds with logic app. I'm sorry to tell you, but it's kind of, I couldn't do that until now, okay? Seconds, yes. 200 milliseconds? Not really, but with BizTalk again, by the way, okay? And then it's kind of, I need to see what is inside BizTalk and what to migrate. So if I say message routing, I'm saying that probably service bus, queue topics, but there is a lot of things also. As a cache Redis can be also used. API management, you can do content-based routing with API management if you want, depending on the requirements that we have. But there is no one-to-one match. Okay, there is one-to-many. Okay? Depending on the scenario, we have to adapt and choose schemas, of course. Depending on what you are going to use, if it's logic app consumption, then probably you are going to use an integration account, logic app, storage account. We can do a custom solution with storage account as a functions to also store our schemas, or logic app standard that has out of the box functionalities for that. Mapping the same, kind of the same stuff of the schemas. There is a new kid on the block, the data mapper. Okay, that's the new mapping about logic app standard. It's in private preview still, but It's going to be one of the future of the transformations inside logic apps. Pipelines, we don't have a pipeline component or a pipeline concept inside Azure. What we can do is create a logic app that works as a pipeline, okay? Or API management that works as a pipeline or as functions, but there is no pipeline concept inside Azure, okay? An adapter, we have connectors, okay? But we can also use, for example, logic app as a connector, okay? And I'm going to present that in the last session. And as a function can also be kind of an adapter. Orchestration, yes, logic app, but we can also do by code, by Azure functions or API apps. Okay? Again, depending on scenario, what you want to do. There is no business rules in Azure. Microsoft is working on that. I don't know if they are going to release soon or not, but there is no business rules. But you can do the same depending on the scenario with logic app, key vaults, configurations, functions, SQL. We can create our business rules, okay? It's not that difficult. There is no BAM. Again, Microsoft is working on that and they show that in Integrate, but still something that is coming. But we can do kind of the same with monitoring, analytics, a custom solution, but we can create that BAM concept, okay? Tracking, there is nothing like BizTalk that you go to resource and enable tracking, disable tracking, and so on and so forth. We have the logic app run history, the tracked properties, storage account, Azure monitoring. Again, depending on scenario, we have to kind of build that. ADI, we have an integration account and logic apps for do that. Accelerators like RosettaNet, we have integration account. We have HL server support nowadays, also in Azure, and some kind of Swift, but I'm not too familiar with that, to be honest, okay? And this abstraction by code and connectivity that BizTalk is that we use binding files, okay? There is no this concept inside Azure. That's more about DevOps and bicep scripts, and you can do this kind of different configuration from dev and production and so on and so forth, okay? And again, there is no SSO. We have the key vault, SQL Server, app configurations. What else? Okay. Cross-referencing, this kind of a feature inside BizTalk. Luckily, not many people use it, but there is a table to do some cross-reference, to do some kind of mapping about IDs and so on and so forth. It doesn't exist. You have to create by using, for example, SQL Server, kind of easy stuff to do also. And configurations, again, Key Vault, SQL, app configurations, you name it. Okay. And after that, after we develop for that, design, we have to test and deploy everything, okay? But again, two most important parts are the first two ones, okay? And the rest has to flow. But I would guess, choose a simple application, migrate, and then start all over again, okay? And that's it. We learn for failures. So do not think that even by doing all of these, you are not going to fail, because you are going to fail, okay? But important is that we learn from that, and on the next solution, we are going to improve that, okay? We are going to be better on the first, second migration, and the third, and so on and so forth, okay? So learn and move next. Me, along Michael, Stefan, Thomas, and a lot of guys in Microsoft, we create this architecture guide for migration. It's public. Go there. You have the slides are going to be available. You have the link there. I think it's a good starting point. Well, we have to survive. Okay. I promised my kid to show this last slide. I have 3 kids. I work full day, and normally when he goes to bed and say, "Daddy, are you going to work?" I say, "A little bit. Are you going to get some money?" "Yeah, I'm trying." And the reason he say that is that he wants Lego from Star Wars, and I promise that all contribution that happens is going to be for him to buy the Legos. So you have the QR code. If you want to contribute, we buy me a coffee. I'm happy. It's not for me, it's for that little cell there, and he will be a happy guy. With that, I finished my first session. I hope you enjoy that, and you have a Q&A session later on. If you have questions, you can go and address that. Okay.
I asked Simon if what he wanted to do if when he was younger, and he talked about extreme sports. He also talked about that he was thinking about something being famous for something, being some kind of celebrity. And I think it's funny that he says those words and explains himself his dream as a child was extreme sports and celebrity, because some people think that speaking in front of a crowd is some kind of an extreme sport, and I mean, you're being published at the internet after this one, so I guess you're some kind of celebrity after this also, so great dream fulfillment. I also asked him, what is a perfect day? And he said, wake up early, really early, sitting on the balcony with some breakfast, hot day, and then he likes his agenda to be full and with activities. Gym, running, and then swimming, triathlon or something like this, and then dinner with family. So, yeah. Our celebrity star, extreme sports enthusiast, Simon Stender, please.
Is it working? Yeah, okay. Cool. Thank you, Robin, for the introduction. You always come up with such creative ways to introduce people at our event, so thank you. I need to go back a few steps here. It's working. I'll start here. So, yeah. Hello, everyone. I would like to start off by saying a special thanks to Sandro for joining us all the way from Portugal. It's truly a pleasure to have you here and to be able to share this stage with you. And of course, I also want to thank each and everyone else who decided to be part of this event. So, our event's purpose is to guide all of you through the fascinating journey of migrating from BizTalk to Azure. And Sandro has already laid down some of the crucial aspects to consider while devising a migration plan. And building on that foundation, I will now talk a little bit about how to set a solid infrastructure, but also about the importance of having a design to illustrate your integrations to ensure a successful migration journey when working with Azure. But first, I would like to start with an introduction. So, except for being a celebrity and an extreme sport athlete, my name is Simon, and I've been working here at Contica for 3 years now. And I'm working with both development and architecture regarding both BizTalk and Azure integrations. So last presentation I held during a similar event like this, I spoke a little bit about my dad, since he is a building architect. So it seems that not only did he pass down genetics for being tall, but also a passion for architecture and design. But in my case, it's more about technical design rather than building design. So I hope that today's discussion will leave you guys with new insights and perspectives. So, let's imagine that a company has already made the decision to migrate to Azure. The next step is to set up a solid infrastructure. So I wanted to go a little bit deeper on this topic and explain a little bit about setting up an infrastructure,
but also explaining why it's important to have a plan regarding infrastructure early in development. But first of all, what is infrastructure? Infrastructure in Azure refers to the underlying resources and services that enables the platform resources. For example, the Logic standard workflows. To draw a parallel here with my dad's profession, think of the infrastructure as the walls and the floor of a room. Just as a room's walls and floor provide the essential foundation for placing furniture like tables and chairs, infrastructure works a similar way in Azure. Without an infrastructure in place, other resources cannot function effectively, or in some cases even exist. So, some resources that belongs to the infrastructure that you will probably bump into when starting your migration journey is, for example, a storage account, service bus, a virtual network, Logic App Standard, but without the workflow, just the app itself, and an API management instance. So the infrastructure resources can be used in one integration or more, depending on how the architecture is made. And these resources can be managed and scaled dynamically to support the needs of your integrations. Depending on your needs, the tier of these resources may also differ. For example, if you want to integrate the API management instance with the virtual network, then the API management instance needs to be a premium tier, and this is very costly. So plan ahead what resources you need, but also the respective tiers of these resources. But why is it important to focus on infrastructure? Well, first of all, just like I mentioned, it ensures scalability. Having some resources infrastructure allows you to easily scale up or down based on your workload, ensuring that your applications can handle varying level of demand. For example, in a project where we have a service bus, maybe the only thing that we need from the start is a service bus queue. But as the project progresses, more features might be required, and the only resource that we need to scale up in this case is the service bus, or with other words, the infrastructure. This perspective can of course be applied to many resources, not just the service bus. In this example, we have two Logic App standards that uses a app service plan. So the Logic App standard needs an app service plan which hosts the Logic App. And the app service plan can be shared across multiple Logic Apps if this is set up. So if the demand is high enough on one or more of these Logic Apps, then the only resource that we need to scale up in this case is the app service plan, or with other words, the infrastructure. Furthermore, by isolating the infrastructure resources from the platform resources in Azure, we gain the ability to implement a robust security measure, including identity and access management, which play a pivotal role in safeguarding the integrity of our infrastructure resources. For example, we can assign a specific group of people with permissions to make any changes to any infrastructure resources. This effectively prevents any unauthorized alterations. And the same thing can of course be done with the platform resources. So now that I've talked a little bit about infrastructure, I would like to discuss the importance of having a good design to illustrate the integrations. Because before we start focusing on the building pieces in Azure, we need to visualize the process from a business standpoint. Just like my dad's building blueprints are required to create buildings, having a technical high-level and low-level design will assist a lot when working with a migration project, or any integration project for that matter. So first off, I would like to emphasize the importance of creating a comprehensive high-level design right from the start of a project. The question that naturally arises is, why invest the extra resources into creating a robust design? Well, allocating time and resources at the initial stage of a project before diving into development is an investment that is always worth it. It helps reduce any unnecessary challenges or uncertainties that can otherwise occur in the middle of the development. This thoughtful approach of planning ahead, ensuring a well-structured integration strategy, ultimately translates to time saved for the developers who will later implement this design. Speaking of design, I would like to first start by discussing the high-level design. So the purpose of the high-level design is to show the overall structure and interactions between different components or systems, focusing on the key concepts, interfaces, and data flows. It provides a conceptual view of how the integration will work without delving into any implementation details. Having a comprehensive high-level design in place serves two purposes. It helps developers grasp the project as a whole, while also providing a valuable visualization tool for everyone involved in the project, even the customers. The high-level design also provides beneficial tracking of the status of the migration project and can be used to see what's completed, what's in progress, and what remains to be done. I will now go through an example of how a high-level design can look and show you why it can be so useful. So here, for the sake of this presentation, I have a few designs of an ERP system. I will show you both the high level and then explain also the low level and show you why they can be so useful to have. So here first we have the high level design. So the purpose here is to show the overall structure, and each box here represents a different component which has some kind of interaction within the system. So the purpose here is just to get the general idea of the project, not to go into any specifics. But what we can see here is that all of these components have some kind of interaction with each other, and to be able to get a visual representation of this is really a good thing to have. Now, let's say that a customer wants to get status on what has been done and what remains to do in this project. Then, explaining that the inventory management component is done, the order management component is still in progress, while the rest is not yet started through the design, is a great visualization tool to be able to see the overall progress. But let's say that we want to dive a little bit more into specifics here and see exactly how far development has come in the order management component. Then, if configured, we can click this order management component box and be taken to another design explaining in more detail what this component is about. To make designs like this interactable is something that is possible in most design tools today. In this case, I'm using a design tool called Miro, but this is of course possible in, for example, Visio. So let's go a little bit deeper here into this order management box and see what's behind it. So in this design, we can see the key Azure infrastructure resources that are being used for the integrations connected to this component. We also can specify, for example, what resources are included in the network security, and if configured, we can press the Azure front door icon there in the middle, and we will be taken to some documentation regarding the specifics of the security implementations. Then we can see that we have two integrations here as main components of this design, but we do not here go into specifics of how these integrations are built. Instead, the purpose here is just to get a general idea of the structure, but also to see the progress. So here we can see that integration 1, create order, is done, while integration 2 is still in progress. So now by having these high-level designs, we can quickly figure out what the general purpose is of the ERP project. We also got an understanding of what's completed, what's in progress, and what still hasn't been started. Having a design like this to track progress and explaining the project visually is a great way to involve all the parties in a project. I also quickly mentioned that we can use the design to refer to other documentation, such as the network security. By having a more interactive approach enables the high-level design to reference all the information regarding this component of the project. But let's say that a developer wants to use this design and see exactly the implementation details of integration 1 create order, for example. In order to do this, we need a low-level design. So let's go beneath the surface here of the integration 1 create order. In this design, we can see a lot more Azure resources present. This is the information that a developer needs in order to implement this specific design. So if you take a look at the top left here, I don't know if you in the back can see so clearly, I hope so. We can see that there is a resource group icon with a resource group name, and this is the resource group where these resources will be located at. Then we have a repository name. That's the name of the repository that will be source controlling this integration. Then we also have in top right the name of the pipeline, which is responsible for the CI/CD process to deploy these resources to Azure. So if I quickly go through the logic of this integration, we have first a workflow that is being triggered by the inventory management API. Then we have a function in this workflow that does some kind of transformation, perhaps, before sending this information to the next workflow using a claim check pattern. And then we have some archiving steps before sending the outputs to the order management API. So a low-level design like this maybe does not say that much to a person that has no experience with Azure integration services, but for a developer, this is saying a lot. Same as the other designs, we can make all of these icons interactable. So if you click on one of them, we can be redirected to some kind of information regarding that specific part of the design. Having this set up will make the low-level design a reference to all the information regarding that specific integration. So, I mentioned that pipelines are responsible for deploying our resources to Azure. By having pipelines to create resources enables us to easier come up with a disaster recovery plan. So I wanted to talk about just that. Here at Contica, we have a strict CI/CD policy to deploy all of our resources using pipelines. Same goes for the infrastructure. By having the resources deployed to Azure, we can just press a button to deploy all of the resources at once in case of anything being accidentally removed. And since the infrastructure has such an important role in a migration project, having a disaster recovery plan is mandatory, I would say. So I wanted to show you guys an example of how it can look when dividing the infrastructure resources from the platform resources in a repository pipeline perspective. With this example, we will both separate the infrastructure resources from the platform resources, while also enabling the possibility for a disaster recovery plan. So in this first picture, we can see that we have put all of the infrastructure resources in a separate repository. This is to make it easier to keep track of what resources belongs to the infrastructure. In this repository, we describe what resources are going to be deployed to Azure using a pipeline, and the resources that you can see here all belongs to the infrastructure. But depending on the integration, the content here may of course vary. If we have planned this project correctly and are sure that these are the only infrastructure resources needed, then this pipeline only has to be run once. Because once the infrastructure resources are deployed to Azure, then there's often no need to redeploy it. If we take a look at the platform resources, however, they look something more like this. In this case, we can see that there are a lot fewer resources, only one in this case, that are being deployed to Azure. For developers who want to deploy their code to Azure for testing purposes, having a more streamlined pipeline with fewer resources greatly reduces pipeline runtime. And this is something that developers highly appreciate. Right, developers?
Yeah.
So this pipeline is expected to run a lot more frequent compared to the infrastructure one, particularly when any changes to the integration's logic occur, as the logic app standard workflows are the most commonly affected resource. So by having the infrastructure from the platform resources divided, we make it a lot easier to understand the structure of the project. It will also make it more secure to restrict permission between the infrastructure resources and the platform resources. And it will also go a lot faster to deploy changes for developers. So, Some key takeaways from this presentation. Don't just start by creating resources from left to right when starting your migration journey. Focus on the infrastructure resources first and start with those. Secondly, use the design for everyone involved in the project. The design is not just for the developers, but also the project leaders, the customers, for example, anyone who needs to know the structure of the project. And lastly, separating the infrastructure resources from the platform resources will make it easier to control security, but also the general structure of the project. If you follow these steps when migrating to Azure, then it will surely save you a lot of headache, but also a lot of money. Thank you guys for listening.
How many of you have seen MacGyver? Please raise your hands. Thank you for that image, because I felt like him. I don't understand. So I understand that you have a lot of guys here understanding. So very good, Simon. Thank you so much. And infrastructure and platform should be divided. That's what I understand. Yeah. Next slide is. Coming soon. All right, so Contica, our core business is integration, as you probably know. Either you're a customer or partner, or someone else here or an employee. As I said, core business is integration, but we always also believe that you mind about security, and we do too. So let's say that we hear you, and stay tuned. We also think that you are aware of visualization, machine learning, and AI. We hear you, stay tuned. So security and visualization, machine learning, and AI. What we already heard, both from Sandro and previously, is that you definitely care about monitoring. It's not a buzzword, it's something that we need to take in consideration, and that's why we have invited one of our partners, Nodinite, because I know that you, Henrik, you care about journeys, and you're here to talk about journeys. Right. So let's swap presentations and applause.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Contica, for inviting me, to having me here. It's a really great opportunity for me to talk to all of you. Many of you are already Nodinite customers, I believe, Contica Nodinite customers. Some of you might be interested in knowing what Nodinite is, and I will not tell you so much. I will try to give you a teaser. I think, could you go back a few slides, perhaps? So I want to give you a teaser. I want really to promote something that will happen. Yes, right. Seamless monitoring in a hybrid environment. We talked about that, and we heard Sandro, you talked about monitoring before, and I think that is really what I live for. No, sounds ridiculous, right? How can you do that? That's boring stuff, monitoring. How many of you, let me see, how many of you have an answer on this question? Do you have a clear view of what monitoring you need if you now is working in an organization where you have done BizTalk integrations, Azure integrations, or any other integrations? Do you have a clear view? Hands up. Now I'm going to ask you exactly. No, I'm asking.
Go ahead. Answer will be depends on the environment.
The fact is that this is a question I often ask potential customers. Do you know what you want? What are the requirements? Can I get a requirement spec on your monitoring needs? And what do people say? Well, we are busy with other things. We need to do all the integration first, and we have other projects. Well, by the way, there are fantastic tools already available in the BizTalk toolbox or in the Azure toolbox, right? this is a question we have been asking our customers for 11 years. I think we have got the requirements back like 5 times, perhaps. We have 100 customers today, so you're not alone, all of you, right? But you're not alone either, the 2 of you, because some people realize that, you know, how much time do we spend in operations taking care of support tickets regarding a stuck message? Quite a lot, and actually the more integrations we do, the more support tickets. And you know what? It's money, right? It's about orders, invoices, you know, the important messages. This is why I'm so excited working with this, because we are really trying to help businesses to make better business, make more money, get away with, take away all the dull work, the things that, you know, is not perhaps very creative. And many of you are developers, I guess, right? And so why don't, you know, let use tools to automate the process of operation and maintenance. So thank you for the answers. Let me see, yeah, right. So of course, who are the users of monitoring? And we all know that, right? It's mostly you guys, right? If you work with operations and perhaps development, technical people, you understand what you're looking for. This is sort of a given, and you're used to use many other different monitoring tools, you know, APM tools. So this is, and perhaps you say that, all right, I can use OP5 or AppDynamics or anything else for also the monitoring of integrations. What we think is important, and why the business model of Nodinite is as it is, not to talk so much about that today, but that's because we are addressing this group. There are many, many more. These are salespeople who get an angry call from someone who has ordered something, you know, a month ago, and the goods have not been received yet. So, you know, where are my stuff? I ordered it, you know, a month ago. And the sales guy, he remember, he might have got an alarm, he might have already talked to the IT department, but he has no answer. We think it would be good for him to get, you know, to have the answer on that question. And the next picture, I'm sorry about that because I didn't want to use this too many times. Those are typical questions we think of IT users. This is what we hear. Questions where they need, you know, some kind of a tool to get answers on. How many failed message transactions have you had during X days, hours, minutes? I want to view how the systems are connected. What integration types? Or I want to know how many integrations we have in production or QA or in test. Different questions that might be of importance for people, right? And if you talk to the business people, this guy, he wants to know, where is order 1, 2, 3? And once he can see where it is, if it goes stuck somewhere, he wants to understand what is the problem. Would be nice, right? To see that perhaps the problem has been caused by himself, entering the wrong data into the order. The integration works fine, right? You know, so if this guy would send a support ticket to the IT department and ask, you know, why has my order got stuck? It will be very hard for them if the integration works, but it is the message that is wrong. Again, that is the focus for us. Make sure we help the business. And we have a good example. You all know about Wilde. It's a well-known company here in Sweden, in the, you could say, the mining business, gold, copper, etc. A turnover of around 6 billion euros, I think. They don't have Microsoft as an integration platform. They had IBM actually. Changing actually to France. Have you heard about France? They have around 400 flows to monitor. They have configured 200 views to the monitoring tool in order to provide this, that I talked about, this help for the business people. 200 views. I mean, there are hundreds of people in Boliden that uses this tool to find the answers on the questions that they think is important. Boliden even use this when Deloitte, you know, the account people come and ask about specific money transactions between systems. Then they can use this tool to actually go in, because everything is logged, right? You log not only the event but also the bottom. As a result, Boliden claim, and you can listen to this guy, Martin Bengtsson, in a 6-minute video on YouTube. He claimed that 7 out of 10 support tickets, that, you know, all of them previously were sent to the IT department, are now handled by the business itself. That means money, right? Because every call, every ticket costs money in terms of people's time. And of course it can be worse than that. So according to Martin, the investment they did in this tool, this was about 2-3 million because of all the views that they configured. That money they got back in 3 months. So after 3 months, it's money. You know, they make savings. Approximately more than 5 million SEK per year. And also total transparency. All the blame game that I had before, you know, it's the fault of the IT department. No, it's the business people. You know, that is gone. So I think this is really good. And well, of course, it's more fun. It creates a better atmosphere when people trust each other, and there's not so much of a blame game. So our proposal here is that you get a solution that integrate things that we have called a repository monitoring and logging. Might not be exactly what you think it is. We will talk more about that in the next event that is upcoming together with Contica. But this is really what our focus is. And of course, I think it's perfect title of this seminar. I really was excited when I saw it, and I was quick there sending it out to all my friends on LinkedIn that I think this is something you shouldn't miss, because everybody will have to move, right, from BizTalk to somewhere. And of course, most of you guys working with this will probably move to Azure, but it might be even more complicated than this, right? Many of the large customers we have an even more complex environment. You know, they're using BizTalk, Mule, they acquired a company last year, they need to merge that, and of course IT systems needs to merge as well. So, you know, it's really, really complicated. And again, our goal is to make sure you can find the order. Make sure that the message flows as expected. Message flows, that is the key. So, Nodinite is the answer. That's what we did. And also the 100 customers that we have today. We have been doing this for 11 years. It started off with 2 customers. Holmen, you all know about Holmen, a paper company. Second one was YIT, nowadays Caverion. Caverion is still a really good customer. They're exactly in the situation between BizTalk and Azure. Fantastic customer. You know, we have been focusing on the Scandinavian market. That is still our focus. We have, though, a few customers outside. We see that the number of users are increasing much faster than the number of customers. We are happy for that. Of course, we want more customers as well. But what we really think is important is that this tool becomes available for people who are stakeholders or dependent on messages. It could be, you know, medical referrals from the doctor, from the primary care to the hospital, to the specialist. And, you know, we have today many health providers as customers. Of course, we are really dependent on Contica and other partners. Some of you are here tonight as well. And so I really love those type of events and this possibility to share this with you and with the partners. Yeah, we have started to enter other markets as well, and I have a few customers in the US, Australia right now, UK, etc. Right. And you know, we're not that many people, right? I get goosebumps when I show all the brands, all the logotypes of the companies that we have bought. Like those ones. Those ones are the ones that we have testimonials from. And of course, you know, for you, I mean, it sounds like, I don't know if you recognize any of those well-known brands in Scandinavia. Big companies, and they could all afford the best. They have complicated environments. TS, I think, is really interesting because they are an IT service and equipment provider in the Nordics, the biggest, they claim. And they should know, right? Yeah, 13 and 21 regions, and we are active in most major industries. I have pressed the button. So, please, would love to see you at the next upcoming event. We haven't decided the date yet. We have a newsletter where we write things, good things, invitations, for instance, and we will do something on LinkedIn, I'm sure. But seamless monitoring in a hybrid environment. Stay tuned. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Henrik and Nodinite. What happens now? We will soon see. We will do like this. First of all, a bit of a story, since we said that monitoring is kind of a buzzword, but also something that customers cares about. One of our customers, as we said before, our core business is integrations. And one customer came to us with a monitoring problem. So they came to us with a monitoring problem and they said, like, let's start with monitoring and then let's talk integrations. So obviously monitoring is something that we need to take in consideration. Yes, so seamless monitoring in a hybrid world will be our next event together with Nodinite, so stay tuned. Okay, so everyone, let's continue and 2 sessions with Sandro. But first, I want to recognize the international people flying in from. I mean, first of all, Sandro from Portugal. Thank you so much for being here. I mean, we will come back to that. We have England, Savannah. Very nice to see you here in Gothenburg, in Sweden, and from Germany. Nice to see you here, and yeah, we are experts from all over the world. And we have one special guest also being the first time in Sweden, Fernanda. So very welcome to Sweden, and yeah, great to see you here. Statistics, 2 books, right?
Yeah, 2 books.
Author of 2 books. Do we have it? What?
More to come.
More to come.
Yeah.
Any other authors in the room? Nice. 13 years of MVP.
Indeed.
And 1 year MVP in Visio.
Exactly. I was anything that is drag and drop is with me.
3 kids?
3 kids. $2.
Yes, sorry.
I'm gonna send all my Visio questions to you.
Yeah.
And 1
I
dog.
will help you.
And 1 dog. Statistics also. Very nice numbers. And I wanted to say that it was the first time in Sweden, but it's not.
It is not.
Oh, but Fernando, first time in Sweden. You're very welcome and thanks for being here. Next session, Sandro Pereira, please, round of applause.
Yep. I'm going to skip this one because, well, you already know what me. I put there just because the slides are going to be ready. Again, DevScope, look at some of the products that DevScope has. Smart Documented, but we have Power BI products that are amazing. So go ahead and check on the website of DevScope. And yes, so first session was kind of theoric stuff. This is going to be practical stuff. Okay, I choose some couple of scenarios that I'm going to migrate from BizTalk, and I'm not saying that is going to be the best solution to migrate to Azure. It's a possible solution to migrate to Azure. Okay, so the first thing is about content-based routing. Okay, and content-based routing with log operations. How many of you are familiar with BizTalk, by the way? So a lot of people, no? Awesome. When we speak about log operations, sometimes and kind of request response, we think about an orchestration, which is incorrect. Okay, orchestration is good if we have a business process. To do simple request response, we don't need an orchestration to do that. Okay. In this case, and was a solution that I made, we have a web service exposed, okay, with canonical schemas, an insert person, a delete person, and a select person. And in the other side, we have a SQL database, and we are going to insert, delete, and select. Okay, request response without orchestrations. Okay. We are just doing content-based routing through the message box and we get the response back. Okay, so we have this amazing solution with BizTalk. How can we do the same inside Azure Integration Service? No. First of all, we don't have message box. We don't have property promotions. Okay, the SQL adapter is not the SQL adapter, but is a SQL connector, which works different. Well, the important part here is do not change the inbound, because this is what the client communicates with. If I do not change this part, it's transparent for the client to communicate with my solution. So that's the goal that I'm going to do that. Well, this was my approach, okay, and I'm going to show that approach. The web service that was exposed inside the BizTalk machine is now going to be exposed in API management. It's going to accept the SOAP and blob. You're still going to have kind of do the same request that you said before, but with a different URL, of course. We can innovate. Again, innovation is important, and do some kind of better authentication with a Wilde or keys and so on and so forth. Okay. And again, there is no message box, but we are going to do that operations inside the logic app. So that logic app is going to handle, and it's going to be a single logic app. I could choose create 3 logic apps, one for insert, delete, and select, but then I have to monitor three different stuff. So I'm going to use a simple one because that's not too much logic inside. So it's kind of easy to do that. And of course, I also innovate a little bit and put my SQL database, the same SQL database that was on premise, on the Azure SQL. Okay, again, it's transparent for the client. The client communicates with the service, not with the SQL. So I could even remove the SQL and put the Oracle or other stuff like that. Okay, so first, let me show you the BizTalk stuff. Okay, so this is the BizTalk solution. I have to look this way because I don't have on my screen here. So this is the content-based routing. I do have a receive port here. And if you look to that receive port, it has a receive location that listens to a web service. Of course, because they have inbound, canonical inbound schemas, and we need to send it to the SQL, I'm doing inbound mapping transformation from person to insert, add person to insert, delete person to delete, and select to select. Okay? So I'm mapping or transforming my message into what SQL expected to have. And of course, I have here the opposite, the response from SQL and response to transform into a canonical response. Okay. And again, I do not have orchestrations, okay? Zero orchestrations. I have a send port that has a filter to that receive port, okay, and add all the operations here and define which kind of operations we are doing inside the SQL database. Simple as that. Okay. So in my solution, I only have 6 schemas, 6 maps, and that's it. Okay. And I don't know if I have it here, but let me close this. No, I do not have here, but if I test that, again, it's going to be an insert, delete, and select. Okay. I have in a different machine. I can show you later on. Now, to do the same, inside well, I'm not sharing. To do the same inside the Azure, I first have to create my API. So I create manually my API on API management, and you see that I have an add operation, a delete operation, and a select operation. And well, I could choose kind of having an integration account, mapping, and so on and so forth. Well, I decided to keep it simple, to put something different, and I actually create a policy that converts my XML in JSON. So instead of sending the XML to the watch cap, I'm going to, on the API management, convert that XML and send it to JSON to the logic app. The advantage of that is that I have a first-class experience with JSON inside logic app. I can tokenize this JSON message and I can simply map into the operations, which I cannot do that with XML, at least for now. Okay, so I did innovate a little bit. I even ignore the SOAP action that is sending, and for the other operation, I'm going to put my header, that is insert operation header, insert operation, and I'm going to delete operation, and so on and so forth. So I'm controlling the better way this, because I can innovate here. Okay, and of course this is going to invoke a logic app inside my environment. So the logic app is here. I'm just receiving JSON. Okay, I think this is the correct one. Okay. Yes, this is a select operation. Okay, I'm tokenizing the headers, so I can control the headers. And here I'm going to do the switch operation between what is my operation type. It's a delete, an insert, and a select. Okay, and of course I'm not using the body JSON here because I can receive multiple bodies. So depending on the headers, on each branch, I'm going to then do a parsing for the correct JSON message that I'm receiving. For example, a delete, I'm going just to receive the citizen card. I'm going to delete by the citizen card. On the insert, I'm going to have address, email, first name, last name, and so on and so forth. Okay? And on the select, I'm going to do a select operation on my SQL database. Okay? This is my SQL database that is equal that I have on premise. You see, I already have some kind of results here, and I did prepare here on Postman some examples to query that. And again, if you see that, I'm sending the exact same SOAP payload that I was using inside BizTalk. Okay. So if I do a select instead of Yogo, to see this is working fine, I'm going to put Sandro, and I'm going to have Sandro Pereira, all my details that we see that it's here. Okay, it's working. So wait a second, okay. Now if I do an add operation, let me put just a different card just to be sure that exists, doesn't exist. I'm going to add operation complete. I got that. Say that 7777 is there. Okay? Even if I try to kind of insert the same, I have control and say, well, you know, duplicate. Okay? And if I want to delete that, order ID, and I mean order ID. Oh, I did a mistake with the delete and overload that. So let's keep that for now. Okay. No, delete is this one. Sorry. I got that, so it's going to delete that one. Okay, it's working exactly the same way, but in a different implementation. Again, I did the migration as is in terms of functionalities. It's working the exact same way that it's working with BizTalk, but I'm migrate to a different technology, and I did innovate a little bit. So I'm not using now XSLT to do the transformations. What I'm using is that I'm using policies inside API management to do this kind of transformation. And then, of course, by doing JSON, when I do the delete operation, well, if it asks for a row ID, I have my citizen card here because I have the payload tokenized. So I have a token here that I can access to that field in the payload. Okay. So if you see now the insert, sorry about it. So if you go here to the see more, I have all my fields of the message tokenized. So phone, I can go here and just click it. Simple as that. I can map to my operation. It's going to send it to the SQL. First class experience. It's great. I can do that with XML, but I have to use XPath queries, or I have internally to convert in JSON and do the exact same that I'm doing there. Okay, I just facilitate a little bit. Okay. Where is the slides? Now, another scenario, and this is a real case sample of a client. It's a file transfer. Okay, all BizTalk customers have some kind of solution that is a file transfer. Okay, in this case, this is a flat file, a CSV file. And I modify the structure not to be the exact same of the client, of course. But the the goal is that the name of the file has some naming conventions, okay? My organization, my client, and the ID of the document itself. Actually, the real case, it has more, okay? But I simplify a little bit this. So in BizTalk, what I did was I could do that in different ways, with a pipeline, passing the name and get that, but I use something that is not really common to use, that is business rule engine, to extract and parse the name of the file, and based on that, do content-based routing. And again, based on the name of the file, I'm going to promote partner, message type, and file name. And through that promotions, I can easily route and subscribe on the sandbar. So I can, if tomorrow I have another partner, and just go into the business rules, apply a new policy, and that's it. My solutions stay the same. I don't need to go to my custom component or change just because I have a new one. And that works amazing. Problem here, again, we don't have message box, but we don't also have business rule, okay? So we need to do that in a different way. And, well, again, in this case, I use a logic app to be the constant of also the business rules. And I use key vaults to have some kind of configurations that, based on the name, I'm going to fetch what is the configuration needed, and dynamically I'm going to call a child logic app depending on if it's SP or a different client. Because SP can be, for example, a folder, but the other client can be an FTP, a REST API, and so on and so forth. And again, in my case, everything was an FTP. But again, we can modernize. We can go to the client and say, do we have a different way to do that? And apply different ways, okay? So, again, let's see the BizTalk part. So I have here the business rules policies, and as you see, I have kind of 3 ones, and again, a little bit different of what the scenarios that I have, but Sandro, the I rule, SMG, Mango, PS, 3 different partners, 3 different documents, okay? And each of them are going to go extract the file name, and based on each value that I have, I'm going to promote different destinations and so on and so forth, okay? This was kind of the real project of the client. And on the BizTalk, I have an application called Dynamic File Postman, and I have a receive port that has a receive location, and use kind of a pipeline to call that policies, and based on that is going to be mapped to the different send ports with different subscriptions, okay? Because I'm going to promote based on each type of the file different property promotions, and these ports listen to different properties, okay? And I think, for example, I have these, and this is going, Sandro is going to the Sandro folder AADI. So if I kind of delete this file here, just not to have this, and you see that if I copy it to my in folder, that is going to be processed, it's going to the business rules, and it's going to be mapped to the AID here, okay? Again, if I use another one like SMIC, that one has to be to this one, okay? Fingers crossed, because I didn't test that, to be honest. multitasking. So based on the name of the file, it goes to different folders. This is the folder. In production is an FTP or whatever, okay? That's the beautiful of BizTalk. We configure based on the configuration that I want on the sandbox. So now let me check here my, okay. Now I have here a VM. I start deciding, okay, where I'm going to put a file. And I can use, for example, a bnet, listen to a file on premise. I didn't have networking and so on and so forth. So I use Azure files, okay? It's kind of a concept of a Dropbox. You install the Dropbox on your machine and everything that you put in that folder, it's going to synchronize to Azure and someone can pick that. So I do have the same files, SP and in this case LR, just to route to different structures, okay? And again, I did kind of do the same, but I did some kind of innovation. I'm going to archive the original files and I'm going to send to a logic app, and we have the main logic app that is going to be here. This one is going to pick up files from that file, Azure file, okay? I have the Azure file connected and I'm going to put, going to pick up the file in a recurrence way. And I'm going to check what is look, I know that there is some kind of files that are dumps that I need to discard, and I'm going to discard that. And I'm going to check what is the client, so SP or LR, and based on that, I'm going to here to the key vault. I'm going to get the partner. So the partners are going to do the partner and read that SP or LR. And I'm going to the key vault, read the configurations of my URL of my child logic app, because I want to dynamically, if it's an LR or SP, to send it to a different logic app. But I don't want to have multiple branches here, because that means that if there is a new one, I have to go to my logic app and create a new branch. So I'm going to put that in configurations, and in runtime I read that configuration and I'm calling it a child logic app. And for that to be dynamic, I have to use the HTTP request, which is fine, okay? Instead of using the logic app connector, I'm using the HTTP and doing the same stuff, and I'm going to send the content type and the name and the content of the message. And I have different logic apps here. So I have one that is processing the SP, and this is going to put in an Azure blob storage in a queue. And I have another one that is going to process another one and send it not to Dropbox but to OneDrive, okay? I changed that in the last minute from Dropbox to OneDrive, but it's going to do the same there. One is going to put in a REST in a REST format, and another one is going to put in a flat file format. But there is one important thing also here, is that where is my VM? This one. This file has a particularity. The first line is not data, it is headers, okay? So it's something that I don't want to process. I want to discard it, okay? And I have to do that somewhere, okay, in my solution. What I did is create a flat file schema, and through that flat file schema, that is the same that I use in BizTalk, by the way. So I can actually take that flat file schema from BizTalk and upload to my storage account and apply that. I'm going to remove that only using the flat file schema. And it's very easy to do that. I don't need any custom component to delete that. Okay? So let me check that again. Oh, where's my mouse? Let me put this is my demo queue. So already have some data there. Let's see. And I have my OneDrive here, just you guys to check. Okay. By the way, let me delete this just not to have problems. Now, if I do send this, and I do send that, I put these two, and I'm going to my orchestration, and I go do it manually because I have this running each 3 months or something like that. No, I'm going to force it manually. It's going to grab the files. Okay, it's running, and it's a seed. You know that we may have here a new one. Exactly. 28, that is today, and we have here a new one also. We may have a new one here, but let's see. It's not here. Is that copy the same file? 28. So this is the SP, the LZS, go to Dropbox. Let me do it again. Just I think I copied this one, but you never know. There you go. I don't know, maybe copy the same one, but this is in XML format, and you see that the first line does not appear. So I remove that, okay? And I remove that by using what is flat file, okay? And I have it here. The problem is because I'm using logic app consumption, to use that I need an integration account to have this flat file schema on Azure. It's a little bit expensive, but if you use logic app Stender, you are okay with that because you are built in. It already support by default schemas. Okay. Now, another thing is, and this is very common, dynamic ports inside BizTalk. In runtime, we set configurations, okay? And we can do that easily by setting the configuration series, okay? Even connecting through SQL, okay? And I do have this in production to a client that, based on the message itself, we are going to insert in different databases that are equal, but they are different clients inside the client. And because we don't want to affect one and the other, we decide in the design phase that each client is going to have its own database. So if it's client A, we have to insert in client A database. If it's client B, we have to insert in client B database. But you only have one orchestration. Right? So that's by setting dynamic ports or doing kind of content-based routing, and that port subscribe that. Nevertheless, we don't have that options inside Azure. And I guess that all the connectors, or the majority of the connectors available on Azure, do not support dynamic configuration. The few exceptions are the HTTP request, the HTTP adapter, that you can dynamically set up. But SQL, you can't. There is no way that you can say that connect to the SQL database or with that server, but in the same with the same contract. So because the database is exactly the same, they just have different servers. Okay, but you cannot use that. The solution is using a logic app as a concept of adapter. Okay, so this logic app has all the operations that you can perform inside that SQL, like the insert, delete, and select. And that other one has exactly the same ones for a different database server. Okay, and I kind of use the same strategy of the BizTalk with the operation to send that to the logic app. I send the operation and the payload. And inside that, I have a condition, say if the operation is equal to insert, do that. Otherwise, do that, and so on and so forth. So I kind of use the same stuff. And again, I use the same strategies. If I have a key vault, depending on the client, I get that information from the client, and that says call this logic app or call that logic app. Again, tomorrow if I have another one, just put inside that, create a new logic app, and that's it. Okay? My main doesn't change. So let me show that. And again, this is my main. It accepts that. What I have is I get the request, I get the company configuration that I get, if it's Sandro Pereira, or in this case it's Nino Brodelli. And based on that, I get the URL, and I'm going to call the SQL connector dynamically. And that's kind of not true. It's a logic app that acts as a SQL connector. And in this case, I have, let's say, this is my Sandro Pereira, and this is kind of the SQL operation scope, which operation delete, insert, and select. And again, for each one, I'm going to put parse and that execute that operation itself there. And it has this exact same for the Nino Cordell, okay? And for the SQL, I have this one. I know. So I have my orders here, select top, and if I go to the other one, that is the Nino, You see that I have the exact same structure, it's exactly the same database, but in two different instances or servers or whatever, okay? So now, if I go to my dynamic boards and do an insert, that's company NC from Nino Corvelli, okay? And that's going to be, let's say, order 7, okay? 7. We go to our, okay, and if I go to, let's go to 7 here, again, if not this one, this doesn't have 7, if I do SP, do the exact same. Oh, damn it. I looked that. I have it there. So, exact same. And I can do all the operations. I do not care. So, delete 7. In this case, I'm connecting directly to the logic app. I'm sending the payload of the JSON directly to the logic app, but I could expose on API management and so on and so forth. No? Kind of the same. And there you go. See? It works. So my logic app works as my BizTalk SQL adapter. Yeah? Last but not the least, one of my favorite topics, that is transformations. I don't know, but for me it's very common to have a process that I receive a payload, I need to fetch some data, fetch again, and aggregate all these in a request that I need to send it to a different, sorry, not this, to a different client, no? So this is quite normal for me. And in BizTalk it's quite simple, because inside BizTalk, inside the orchestrations, I have a transformation shape. And on the transformation shape, I can add on the inbound multiple messages. And what does BizTalk does for me is, behind the scenes, is going to create me a schema with multiple input messages. And I have on my mapping all the messages, I just drag and drop to the destination. How can you do that in Logic App? Okay? Logic App only accepts one inbound message, not multiple inbound messages. The transformation, if you call a transformation action, it's only have one input. So you have a problem there, okay? What I did was, I did implement the aggregator panel pattern inside an orchestration by using the same strategy that BizTalk works behind the scenes, but I have to do it in a kind of a manual way, okay? Because in BizTalk, what it does is create a kind of a dummy schema that is not deployed, and you can use that. So I did the same. I'm using XSLT nevertheless, and I'm going to call that inside the Logic App. I'm using the integration account here because it is a Logic App consumption, but I could use the standard, and in this case, it's not needed. Okay, so let me show that. Is my mom is annoying me, okay? So sorry about that. You know that when, I don't know your mom, but she calls, I cancel. She calls again. I cancel. She calls again. It's impossible, and I can say no to my mom. So sorry about that, guys. Okay, so me see if I can. Formal option. So if I do this in BizTalk, and again, this only works inside orchestrations. This type of map only is available inside orchestrations. If I use the transformation, let me just be sure I'm going to transform a message one, I don't care. I'm going to create a new one and say the first inbound is message one, the second inbound is message one, I only have message one, okay? 3 message ones and 1 message one, okay? What BizTalk does behind the scenes is creating this schema with a root and input message part 0, part 1 and part 2, and again, see, it has the message 1 inside, message 1 inside, and message 1 inside. And I can go here and kind of do this message and message transformation. Very simple to do that inside BizTalk, okay? Again, you cannot apply this inside Logic App. So, delete. And here, just for a proof of concept, I kind of emulate a request because I don't have a request to another system. So I'm going to receive a payload, a Sandro payload, a person payload, and here I'm going to emulate a call to an external system to get more information. I'm going to get my birth date, my gender, my phone, and marital status, and family house, okay? And I'm going to aggregate that, okay? And what I did is I am building behind the scenes the same concept of BizTalk. I have the root, message part 0, message part 1, and I'm having that schema as message part 0 and message part 1. Of course, I need to create this schema first, kind of in a manual way, to put in the integration account. Thank you. Okay, but by doing that, I can have that working and do this kind of joining message that I'm still going to have inside my Logic App process. Okay, of course I can do that by code if I want, and so on and so forth. But here I'm using the same schemas that BizTalk was using, and the same maps that BizTalk was using. Okay, so if I do that and I have a request here, you see that my body joining. This is not the request, so let me go here. This is the request. And I assume that this is not the URL. This is the URL. Let me check one thing here. Okay, all good. Did I say anything correct? Maybe. Nope. There you go. Alright. So I did have the transformation. I'm converting the first name, last name to full name, and I'm getting the gender, marriage status, address, birth that is not on the request message. So I aggregate two messages, do the transformation that I was using inside BizTalk, and return back. Okay, and I use that same approach to using JSON to JSON with the data mapper inside the Logic App Standard, for example, because the data mapper also do not support multiple messages. It has the same problem. So because these transformation shape only accept one content and one map, that's it. Right? And with that is everything that I have for today. I choose some small topics. I hope you like it and have some kind of good ideas. Again, this is my kid. And where is